Hey there, sports fans, and welcome to another edition of Foul Territory. I'm your host, Mike Smith. Opening day is less than a week away right now. Teams have been scrimmaging, guys are getting ready for the season, and I can tell you that everyone is very excited for 2014. Now, the wonderful thing about the first day of the season is that everyone starts with a clean slate. I know a lot of managers have been working hard in the offseason to improve their squads, and we're about to see the fruits of their labor. You pick up a pitcher here, a big bat there, a couple players can really turn around the fortunes of your franchise. So as we get set to look at these off-season moves and the season ahead, I figured who better to have on than everybody's favorite prognosticator, Mr. Ron Darling. All right, so Mr. Darling, it's been a while since we've talked. How have you been? What have you been up to?
Oh, Mike, I've been great, Mike. It's good talking to you again because, it's that time of year now. Baseball coming back again. I love it. I'm actually down here in Arizona, Mike, so enjoying some of this warm weather. It's good for – I was a smoker for a number of years, so it's good for the dry heat. It's a little better than all that sticky humidity for me. So
You catching any spring training games while you're down there?
Yeah, my Cleveland Indians, buddy. They I believe they're first place out here in the Cactus League. So I'll take that sort of output here for the early spring, if you know what I mean.
Well, yeah, I think the Indians could be poised for some big things this year. I kind of liked what they how they started to turn things around last year.
Hope so, Mike. Hope so. It's been a long road here back from the glory days in the '90s that I'm sure you remember. But we'll see. We'll see. They got a decent amount of young talent. I think they can patch a few wins together and maybe challenge the Tigers. I don't know, but it's just good to be down here, Mike. I got a new girlfriend, hanging out with her a little bit. She loves the sun out here, hitting a couple spots. It's a good life, Mike. I like to treat myself every so often, so that's what we're doing right now.
I got to ask, though, you are Mr. Metro League, so, are you still as plugged into the league as you were last year, even though you've been away for a little bit?
Yeah, I have, Mike. It's pretty exciting forecast here for the season, I'd say. Try to keep my ear to the ground as best I can through the site, through the rumor mill, through any of those backroom dealings at the local watering hole that might cause some of the players here on the teams to switch allegiances. But, I think it's going to be an interesting year, Mike. Lost a couple teams, couple of the mainstay franchises are no longer. We got these new teams, the All Out and the Bronx Orioles, kind of like the dynamic that we have going into the season.
Well, I feel like anytime you have new teams, new blood, guys get excited to play them because, they haven't seen them yet. And obviously all these rumors abound about, how this team's going to be, how that team's going to be. So it definitely gets people talking. But to be honest, I haven't heard a ton about these new teams. Have you heard anything about them?
I heard a few things here and there. It's always a bit of a crapshoot talking about teams like this, Michael. But there's a few guys who probably going to be familiar as soon as they step out on that diamond in these new uniforms. But I know Chris Cancel's been on a number of teams in this league, and the Orioles having Matt Ortiz on that team, that brings some legitimacy to them. So yeah, I've heard a thing or two about how they're patching their squads together, but you never know till you hit the fierce competition of the regular season. So I'm interested to see kind of how these guys net out. But I be honest with you, Michael, I don't really know enough to really get into a lot of depth, but I think it's going to be fun. It's a great league. It as best as anyone. So we'll see how they fare and how they stack up.
Well, one of the cool things this year is with the fact that we're going to be playing cross-division games, All Out is actually one of the Bronx Manhattan teams that my team will be taking on. So, I'm very interested to see these, how the early weeks go and see how they stack up against some of these teams who have been in the league. Brings us, one of the things that you're known for is your predictions. And I know they get a lot of people mad, notably the Pirates from last year. But I just wanted to jump into it, and I guess we'll start, talking about those new teams with the Bronx Manhattan division. Top to bottom, how do you see that division shaking out?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Mike, we talk about All Out. All I can really say about them is I'm hoping they're going to give 110% every game, because with a name like that, I'm not really sure what else to expect or what else to peg them for. But I like the idea here, going from bottom to top. And we'll start at the bottom. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be the New York Tigers. They've been pretty quiet here this offseason, and unless they're doing some of those aforementioned backroom dealings, get some super secret new acquisitions, I think they're going to have a hard time contending in that division.
Well, last year one of the things that we talked about coming into the season was we thought they had two definite aces in Joe Carey and De La Rosa.
Oh, Mike, yeah.
That didn't work out the way they hoped. What do you see about this team moving forward?
Yeah, I think you're right. Joe Carey, I mean, he wound up having himself a good year, kind of put that team on his back in certain games, certain instances, but De La Rosa just didn't really pan out to what we thought he was going to be. And with Carey's kind of status up in the air this year, I think De La Rosa might be off the team. I really don't know what's going to happen if their pitching doesning improve. They're going to be in some trouble. I'm not sure how they're going to be able to compete with some of the stronger squads here in this league.
No, I mean it's definitely going to be tough. And looking at the list you have here, you talked about that pitching thing, and this next team you have here. They had some injuries early on last year. Hopefully they stay healthy this year, but what are your thoughts on this next squad?
Yeah, tough luck team, the Rockies. And I like the flow that we get, Michael, when I fax you my predictions in advance, because it works out pretty well for you to get a read on this and lead those questions. It's perfect. This is good journalism, my friend. You do your homework. That's why I like talking to you. But yeah, the Rockies, the tough luck last year. You know what I mean? But yeah, awful luck for these guys last year. They scratched and clawed their way to 9 wins. Their hitting was pretty good. CC really gets his guys motivated to play. But, I think they might have the opportunity to stay healthy, obviously. I don't think Lightning's going to strike twice with all those injuries that they faced. And I guess that's maybe the reason I have them down here so low is I'm just going on what I saw last year, and with the luck that they had, they're almost still an unknown quantity. So, and unknown quality, I guess, Mike, if you know what I mean. So we'll hopefully see them kind of get back in the saddle a little bit, keep some guys on the diamond. But right now, I think a lot of this hinges on Kevin Marquez. And if he delivers, I think they can be competitive. But for now, I need to see a little bit more before I start tossing them up with the likes of the big dogs in this league.
Now, I talk to CC a lot. He's always on Facebook. We're always talking about, what we're doing as managers to get ready. And he says one of the things about his squad that might portend future success is last year a lot of his guys had been out of the game for a while. This year coming back, they've got a year under their belt. Do you think just that reacclimation to baseball can spell a couple more wins for this team?
I think so. They also got a young kid on the team. He's new to the league. He plays short. He pitches. I think that's the thing with their arms. If they can stay healthy, I do think they can make some noise here, Mike. I think they have some capable players, and like you said, CC, active Facebooker. The guy loves this league, as do most of the guys who run these teams, yourself included, Michael. So I'd like to see them do well. I really would.
All right, so moving on from the Rockies, who's that next team on the list?
I'm probably going to go with the New York Baseball Giants. I think they had a great year, obviously, 2 years ago, and then they kind of took a bit of a step back. They were around 500, if I'm not mistaken, Michael.
Yeah, I think they finished at 10-10. I'm not sure exactly how the playoffs went for them last year, but I think they were a 500 ball club.
Yeah, and you know what? They did what a 500 ball club has to do, and that's improve and kind of retool a little bit. And I think they did that in a big way with Adrian Santiago coming over to the team. Solid ERA last year. He didn't log a ton of innings, but in this league, when you have a guy like Oldfield on that team who didn't pitch a ton himself, you can bolster some of those numbers with a second arm that's certainly capable. I like this team. I think it's a big question mark on the mound if those guys don't show up, kind of like we just talked about with the Tigers and their duo last year. If this duo falls flat, I think the Giants will too. But I think they did what they had to do to at least get some momentum going into the beginning of the season and then feel out how things go as things progress.
And on a side note, this was actually the team we scrimmaged them on Saturday. And I saw a lot of good things from him. I'm not sure what Kevin's deal is with the pitching. He didn't throw against us. Maybe there's an injury there, maybe there's not. But this team definitely looked to have the depth and they're a pretty good fielding team too. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them get a little better than 500 this year for sure.
Yeah, and they got a couple guys too from the Express, if I'm not mistaken. So that's almost like a expansion draft or something. When a team folds, there's a lot of good talent that's up for grabs, and they seem to grab quite a bit of it. So maybe that new blood will help rejuvenate them, get them back to that old form.
Oh, of course, of course.
Kind of like my tribe. Hopefully they follow those footsteps as well this year.
All right, so that's your take on the Giants. There's a couple teams left. Who do you see at that next level now?
Gotham, I think, is right there teetering. They're right around that level where they could really make some noise. They made some noise already, actually, in the offseason, grabbing Jason Valentin. So now they have the Valentin brothers here. Going to be a nice 1-2 punch for him. And Mike, I mean, you had some good arms on your team where it's hard to differentiate between the ace and the number 2 guy. So I think these guys are a 1 and 1A. They happen to be brothers. I wouldn't have liked to grown up playing stickball with them on their street when they were kids, but pretty good players. They play the field as well, and they can both swing the bat a little bit too. So with 2 guys like that, that's a good team to start with when it comes to, or a good group of people to start with when it comes to trying to compete in this division.
Well, I always wondered why those guys didn't play together. They were always on competing teams. But then I thought back to, a few years back when we had a pair of brothers on the team, and sometimes that sibling rivalry reared its head in the middle of the games. And, so I don't know what these guys are like, what their relationship's like, but I'm sure just from the talent that Jason brings to the table, they can be a very dominant duo in the Bronx Manhattan division.
Yeah, I caught a couple of those blow-ups for your boys that you're talking about. It's like it's almost like watching the Gallagher brothers in Oasis back in the Indians' heyday, going at it with one another. When you're close enough to someone, I guess you can tell them how you feel. So hopefully these guys don't have any infighting like that, and they can really capitalize on their talents because they got plenty of it.
All right, so you talk about the Gotham A's and that 1-2 punch. The next team on your list here last year was more of a one punch, and this of course is the New York Beers.
Yeah, I love beer. I love the beards or the beers. The beards. I don't know why I said that, Mike, but probably all this heat down here getting in my head. But I do like the way the beers kind of are run. They're very near and dear to my heart with the Darlings running it. But that's also a bad thing when you can name twice as many managers as you can players. Because really, when I think of the Beards, I think of Ryan Smith. I think of a lot of strikeouts. I think of one of the best pitchers in the league. But I don't think of a whole lot else because they don't seem to have a whole lot else. So if they can't get any support from anyone else on the mound throughout the year, I think my namesakes over there on the bench will be having a tough time getting these guys to really get over that hump that they need to pass some of those teams, even like the A's or the Giants that we just talked about.
Well, yeah, and in talking to the Darlings, over the course of the offseason, they said that they feel like they found a capable number 2, but, having that one pitcher is certainly fine for the regular season. You wind up doing all right and winning your share of games. But where I think they might run into problem if that guy doesn't emerge as the second starter is in those best-of-3 playoff series. If you don't have the arms to get through them, you're going to be in a little bit of trouble, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. When you get into any sort of short turnaround type situation, any sort of series at all, you're going to need more than 1 or 2 guys who can toe that rubber and give you a legit chance to win. And if they found it, that's great. If they did find it, they're going to be in very good shape because Smith has a bit of a rubber arm too. He pitches a lot for these guys, and he's got some serious skill. So I wouldn't count him out, but I wouldn't count him in just yet until I see some of the other horses they got in the stable. So excited to check that out.
So now, we're nearing the top of the cream of the crop here.
Cream's rising. Cream is rising.
And it seemed over the last couple weeks, there's been a couple teams who have made some big moves and really are starting to emerge as the class of that division. So, give me your thoughts.
Yeah, I really think, everyone who's listening probably knows where this is going, largely because there's only 2 teams left, but also because I think they're kind of head and shoulders above in a lot of ways. But it's the Titans and the Yankees. They both had big off seasons. They both have big time talent, and there's a big guy on the Titans who I want to start here with, and that's Betances. He was only on the team last year. He didn't really show up to the games a whole lot for the pitching for them, but he won a Cy Young in the Metro League. spent a lot of the last few years pitching in other leagues around the city. So if he can really solidify a position on this roster for the Titans, I think they have an ace that's going to carry them pretty far, and they don't have to go that far to get to the top, frankly, because of where they are right now. So, I'd like to see what he can bring. And, we talked about off-season acquisitions and the work that these teams do. Sergio Bruno, that was a pretty interesting storyline from the off-season with him kind of going dark, finding himself in Puerto Rico and coming back ready to join the Titans. So he's as much as you want to make out of that storyline, the kid can play. He's a great catcher, and there's a lot of value to that, especially in this league. So
now, one of the things, about the whole Sergio Bruno decision is, a lot of the guys in the know that there was, maybe something else in that deal too beyond Sergio. There's another pitcher who has been tied to him, and, he hasn't signed on to a team yet. Do you think this kid winds up signing with the Titans? And if so, what kind of impact will he have?
Yeah, I think you're right, Mike. It's one of those NBA-style package deals where they might want to bring these talented players together, and we'll call him Pitcher X, but I think he is an X factor for these guys. He and Betances, they could be probably the best pitching tandem in the league, and I know we learned the hard way. You can't always just assume that that's going to come to fruition and everything will be good to go and rainbows and butterflies, but I think this team, between the batteries that they could create with Bruno and those two arms, they certainly have the hitting they need to get up early on teams, and then with those arms, they can shut them down real quick. So I really, really like the Titans. I think they're going to be tough to beat.
Which I guess brings us to the Yankees and the 73 guys that they currently have on their roster. What are your thoughts on this team?
Yeah, I think people have been calling them the New York Football Yankees, which is hilarious to me because they're going to trot them out like a military squad or something, and they certainly are very businesslike in their approach, the way that they can win these games and put a roster together. So if they have that deep of a bench, why not use it? So I think they're going to be one of the better teams in this division. Obviously, they're going to have their work cut out for them, going up against the Titans. But I like Alex Oates especially on this team. And then I guess the Yankees also snagged some Diamondbacks from what I'm hearing, which includes Victor Padilla, who I remember we talked about quite a bit here on this very program.
Yes, we did.
And I think him by himself doesn't guarantee, but it gives them the promise of an extra 5, 6, 7 wins. So I think they have a lot of things going their way, and there's a lot of potential for them to kind of take that next step.
All right. Well, that does it for the Bronx Manhattan division, and I think judging from what you've said and what other teams have said, there's sort of a feeling of their haves and the have-nots, but that doesn't necessarily seem to be the case over on my side of the pond. In the Brooklyn Queens division.
Yep. So, I agree with you 100%, Mike. The only issue of have and have-nots in the Bronx Manhattan division is, are they going to have all their players for every game? Because I feel like a lot of these guys are mixed up in different leagues, and if they show up, I think it's going to be a pretty competitive league with those two teams that we just talked about rising to the top. But you're right, a lot of parity in your group. Not as big of a disparity from top to bottom. So I like kind of the excitement that you guys must be feeling here heading into the season.
Oh, of course. I mean, you look at what happened last year. The lowest seeded team in the playoffs winds up, running the tables, winning the entire league. So I think that gives everyone a little bit more to shoot for this year. Just in terms of getting themselves playoff ready. But so if you want to start talking about the Brooklyn Queens division, I'm ready to go.
All right, let's do it. I like Elm Jack. Well, I guess I should say I don't like Elm Jack since I got him down here at the bottom. We'll start bottom to top again. Don't obviously, like we said, there's not a huge gap between the top and the bottom here. So that's not to say that old Ron won't be eating some crow here in a few weeks. Next time we talk, if Elm Jack comes out and lights the world on fire. But they're moving up to Double A. They were pretty dominant in Single A, I got to say. They only lost, I think, that one regular season game last year. They have an incredible pitching staff that's going to be tough to hit. That's the thing. If you have good pitching, it beats good hitting every time, and vice versa. Isn't that right, Mike?
I definitely think that they're situated. I don't know if these guys have necessarily faced the Double A caliber lineups on a week-to-week basis, but regardless of that, I've seen them pitch, and I think they're going to, they're going to acquit themselves pretty well here.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting too, Mike, you talk about a good pitcher. He can certainly shut down an offense, but when you get a guy on base, if you have some of those crafty, quick, annoying players, which quite frankly these guys have quite a few of, they're a real fast team. They're going to steal bases, get under people's skin, and you know as well as anyone, a lot of these guys may not necessarily be quite in their baseball playing prime where they're practicing every day, so you're not working on pickoff moves. You're not working as much on keeping runners close. And if they can use that as an advantage like they did in single A, I think they're going to have a lot of good results this year. But there could be some depth issues they're going to face against some really good catching and some more talent and deeper rosters here on the AA level.
All right, so you got Elm Jack down there. They do have some talented ball players, but as we said in the Brooklyn Queens division, these teams can beat anyone on any given week. Who do you have coming in next?
I actually like the Bandits, Brooklyn Bandits. They're going to be a pretty tough team, I think, this year. They have a couple question marks. And last year, they were buoyed pretty much by the breakout season from Capobianca, who was one of the top hitting catchers in the league. When they have a good supporting cast, Buono, Scotto, guys like that, I think they're going to be able to put some runs up on the board, especially. And then when it comes to pitching, they're gonna have a decent staff with Scotto, Bukowski, Kemp. They play good defense behind those guys. They're pretty fundamentally sound. And I know they're losing their captain this year because Columbano's no longer with the team. But all in all these new faces, some of this new blood, and just a good core that they have used to build kind of a winning formula over the years. I think these guys, I have them here near the bottom. But like I said, some of this is almost interchangeable because you have so much talent in this league, and it's not as disparate as you see in Bronx, Manhattan.
Well, and the other thing that I do like about the Bandits is for the last couple of years, this has been one team that has pretty much always been constant. You knew who was going to be there each year.
Yep.
But it's to get better, you got to bring that new blood aboard, and I think that's something they're doing this year. Picked up an infielder in fall ball, Joe DeFrancesco. They're expecting big things from him, and I think that they might have a new look. But I think it's going to be that same good Bandit team that we've been seeing the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think you're right, Mike. And DeFrancesco played a little fall ball this year, and he's a good, strong player. And he's a guy who should fit in pretty well with that organization, with that team. You talk about how consistent they are, how good they are. Reminds me of the St. Louis Cardinals. The faces might change, but the results tend to be pretty similar. So they don't have any big blockbusters or deal-breaker guys, but DeFrancesco's a real good one, and I think they have some other good ones to surround him with. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them, maybe surprise a few people this year.
All right. Now another team who is making their second appearance in the Brooklyn Queens division. They've been together for a couple years. You've got now the Proletariat.
Yeah, Mike, what is going on with these team names here in this league? When I was playing sandlot ball growing up, you wouldn't even have a formal team, first of all, but it was all the major league team names: the Yankees, the Indians, the Pirates, whoever. Now we got the All Out and the Proletariat. Some interesting groups here, but I'll tell you what, it doesn't matter. We're calling them the hipster Pirates now, with those beautiful hats they wear. Really like that look they got. My penchant for those Rust Belt big league teams. Their old manager's gone. Which is kind of part of their new look, I think. They lost Valentin, who we already talked about, but they had a pretty deep staff even prior to that. So I don't think they're going to have a problem filling that void between Wagenberger, Bennett Pepping, probably the guy who chose the name, the Proletariat, for this team, and Freeman. I mean, it's a pretty prolific staff that they have. And their defense, it's another issue in this league, Mike. You're not going to get a whole lot of cheap hits, infield singles, or reach on errors. They got a lot of really good defenders there in that infield and that outfield. And they hit the ball a little bit too, just enough to get a few wins with that staff that they have. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the Proletariat come up right nipping at the Mud Hens' heels here, especially Mike. So keep your eyes open for them.
Oh, you know what? I mean, we definitely had trouble with them last year. I think they took 3 or 4 from us. So, we know better than to to overlook them, which is pretty good because you have them and us pretty much neck and neck in your preseason rankings here, huh?
So you might say that you knew about the proletariat before it was cool to know about the proletariat.
Of course, yeah.
Got it. Yeah,
Of
you
course.
did learn the hard way, Mike. 3 out of 4, but I think you guys really certainly upped your team's skill level this season here. You addressed a lot of things on the offensive side of the ball, like you said. You haven't done a lot of hitting over the years, but you've done a decent amount of winning. So I think some of these enhancements that you have are going to really help you out. But just starting with who you kept on, Chris Legal, Mike Park, Mashanya, all those guys are playing pretty well. They were last year at least, and I think they probably are going to come back just as strong this year. So I think you got a good core there to start with.
Yeah, we definitely brought back the whole pitching staff, but like you said, I think where we've really made strides this year, we brought some bats back, and Bart Marchand in particular, he was a guy who played with us 2 years ago. We scrimmaged yesterday. He hadn't faced live pitching since our last playoff exit, and he was just roping the ball, and he's a fast kid too. So I think that's going to be a definite help in the top of the lineup for us.
Yeah, he's a strong kid, good hitter. You got Gorvetzian in that lineup now too. You get a lefty bat in there to maybe make a little noise for you. So yeah, between those two, you're right, Mike. That should be a few more runs a game potentially with some of the power that's there. And Gorvetzian too. I mean, we talked about all the pitchers that you're bringing back. The former Cy Young winner you guys got, but Gorvetzian can toss the rock a little bit himself. So I could see him potentially helping you guys out on the hill. And we talked about some of the good pitching in both leagues here, but you guys are right up there towards the top. A lot of talent, a lot of good arms that you guys can really lean on this year.
All right, so now this next team on your list here, I know that they were not happy with your preseason rankings of them last year, and that's the Baisley Pirates.
Yeah, I heard when they clinched the playoffs, Mike, they just set a big bonfire, threw all the mirrors in there that they could find, and just waited for them to smoke. They might want to do a quick Google search of smoke and mirrors, as in using a little magic and some sleight of hand to, pull off some trickery. But you know what, Mike? As much as they might be tweaking me, I can go ahead and give this team a lot of credit because they put together a great season last year. But the fact is they lost to the Storm in the playoffs, just like everybody else. So they got some new management in charge this year. I think they're going to have, again, one of the best hitting lineups that you're going to find in this league. And they also added a little depth on the mound with this newcomer from New York Tech, Gunaris. So we'll see what he can do for them on the mound. And, all they really need is a couple good starts to get past the Storm in the playoffs or to get past, the Mud Hens, the Rainmakers, whoever it might be. So I think they have a lot of the pieces in place. I know they might not have been thrilled with what I said about them last year, but we'll be able to tell pretty quick if last year was some sort of fluke and they were using these smoke and mirror tactics, or if they can actually, put together a back-to-back kind of successful campaign and, hopefully tweak things the right way for the playoffs.
But you mentioned the Rainmakers, while talking about the Pirates, and this was another team who came in last year. A lot of hype in them. Obviously, they were running that 1-2 with Taylor Wood and Mike Casely.
Yep.
Casely and Bricado, Trevor Bricado was another one of their pitchers are gone. But I still think that this team, has more than enough talent to be a real contender, and obviously you do too, having them here at third.
Yeah, Taylor Wood showed us a lot last year. He's back. He's apparently in some great shape from what I've been hearing. Like I said, I'm trying to stay as close to this league as I can while I'm down here hanging out with the Cacti. But I think they have a good opportunity to log some innings with him. They have Travelino as well, who was super reliable. You want a guy who can eat up innings like that, and if they can get a few innings from Antonio Cardona. Apparently his arm is feeling pretty fresh, Michael, as I think you found out firsthand.
Well, yes, I faced not fresh Cardona, who's had that not so fresh feeling, but he still managed to strike me out a couple times. But I think he's proven that he's a good player, and with him on the mound, I think that's another real good pitching staff they've got there.
Yeah, they do. And they got a lot of other talent, too, besides from just on the pitcher's mound. And I was so excited about this particular team because this guy, Antonio Bandanza, I didn't know if I wanted to make a Tony Danza, who's the boss, joke. I didn't know if I wanted to make an Antonio Banderas joke. So I'm just going to stick with just his regular name because I think the kid's a good player. Devin Warner's a great player on that team. He's got a lot of pop in his bat. They got Bridges playing outfield as well. And they have a lot of names up and down the lineup who have all shown that they don't have any sort of problems hitting good pitching. So they lost Bruno behind the dish, which we talked about. But I think they might have even upgraded from that role with the guy Joe Silva, who played this fall and played well. So this team's right up there near the top. Like I said, not a whole lot of separation between them, but I think they can make a lot of noise, especially if Wood stays healthy.
All right, so we're coming into the the rarefied air here. We got 2 teams left. Who's your take for the second best team in the league?
Well, there's only 2 left, Mike, and I think you know who's going to come in first in this league for the next foreseeable future as we're doing this podcast. But nipping on their heels is the Nationals. They've really put together a bit of a super team here. Yeah, taking guys from the BQE. The D-backs, the fall ball champions, the Indians, they got some guys from that team. So I think the way they've loaded up, they could really be the team to beat. Details are a little scarce around the full lineup, I guess. And Mike, I was digging as best I could, pulling my true detective hat on, and I couldn't find out all these guys' names, but the ones I do know: Mena, Wagner, Roberto, and Jeff. But I'm sure once they start ripping the cover off the ball, we'll get a feeling for how they do. But speaking of ripping the cover off the ball, Bill Pizzani, reigning MVP, guy's not there anymore. They have another big hitter there, Cardona, who's going to replace him in the lineup most likely and has the ability to hit a lot of home runs. But I think this team, just top to bottom, got a lot of talent, a lot of top-level talent for a league like this. And they've put it together. It's just a matter of if they gel, and if they do, they're going to be tough. So I'll be very interested to see if these guys can catch up to our number 1 team, Mike, who, if you have the facts in front of you, I'm sure you see who I picked here for the leader in the clubhouse at the beginning, a preseason poll, I should say, for this division.
Well, yeah, and obviously, they're the defending champs. You can't put them anywhere but number 1 on the list, and of course, that's the team that we open up with on Saturday, the New York Storm.
That's a tough lead-in, Mike, because you don't want to get handcuffed or hit something off the nose of the bat here in that chilly March weather. But I'll tell you what, they took everyone by storm, full pun intended, last postseason. So after having been in the league for a long time, they finally won their first title last year, and they certainly earned the right to come into 2014 as the favorite. But there's still some questions there. It's not like this is a guaranteed situation where they're going to go straight to the top. They have the opportunity to run the table in the postseason, like you saw, or they could be that team that struggled to make the playoffs. So they're a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde situation. But when they're Jekyll or Hyde, I don't know how. I never remember how that play goes. But that's kind of, I think, the possibilities for them. But if they're at their best, they probably are the best in this division.
Well, one of the things that I like that they did is they didn't stand pat on, they didn't rest on their laurels after winning the NYCMBL title. They went out and they made some pretty big acquisitions, and I think that can only help, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They brought in Villaro, who played with the Cardinals in BQE a couple years ago. That's a big third starter that they have been looking for a while. That's no knock on Lanahan, who certainly proved his muster in the playoffs. But they also got a backup catcher who can help out Sammy Ackley with the doubleheaders. So that's a big thing that you can't really take for granted, just adding depth. And they might not have the biggest names in the league, but they have just enough big names that when they put together, they can do a lot of damage. And I think their core, they got Pena, Lanahan, Howard, Lerman, all those guys are back. So I think if they can get out to a good start against you guys, Mike, they may never look back. But that's up to you and your boys to try to put a blockade in front of them and see if you can get something going.
Well, now, I'm going to go a little off script here, and I wanted to ask you a question because we've got, with the Mud Hens and the Storm, and I know that the Baisley Pirates are opening the season against the Elm Jack Dodgers, and you got 2 very interesting scenarios. In the Baisley Elm Jack game, you've got Baisley first baseman Chris Verona is going to be playing against his brother Randy Verona, who's on the Elm Jack Dodgers. In the Mud Hen Storm game, You've got our game one starter, John McGregor, is going up against his roommate who signed with the Storm in the offseason. He's that catcher. What do you think is going to be the bigger battle for bragging rights, brother versus brother or roommate versus roommate in that week one matchup?
Well, Mike, I'll tell you what, I think the bigger battle is going to be between the movie studios to create kind of a weird spin-off sequel to that MMA movie, Warrior, because both of these storylines are great. I think, day-to-day living with someone is going to be a little bit more contentious than seeing each other at mom and dad's house or at a family reunion or something. So I'm going to actually take the underdog situation here and go with the roommate-on-roommate battle, which will be interesting to see. But you know what, Mike? Once this weather breaks, once people get out there, you hear the crack of the bat, the smell of the grass, all of those those very stereotypical things that people love about baseball, they're all true, and they're all coming true here for us here soon. So I think those little storylines will make this league great. This podcast is great. Love listening to it, Mike. Love the work you put into it. And I love predicting these teams, hopefully getting a few people riled up. And maybe I'll be eating crow, or maybe I'll be taking my talents to Vegas or something to start betting on the big leagues if I have some success here. So, I think there's a lot of fun to be had, and I'm excited to see that first pitch come out. I'm on a red eye back from Phoenix here at the end of the week, so I got a couple more days down here, but I'll be back in time for those openers and hopefully be lurking around some of these parks.
Well, Ron, it wouldn't be the Metro League without you. I thank you again for coming on, and I can't wait to read all the hate mail that the podcast receives due to your predictions. So,
right on, Mike. Right on. Tell them they can come find me if they want to chat it out in person. But I'm a lover, not a fighter, as I'm sure I've told you, and sure you've heard through my reputation in the area. So do what you guys can. Good luck against the Storm here in the first game, and thanks for having me on.
All right, thanks a lot, Ron. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was the inimitable Ron Darling giving us his picks for the Double-A division. Ron doesn't generally get into predictions with the Single A, but I do have a few thoughts on the matter. I figured I would, not a big ranking or anything like that, but, I think that right off the bat, the team that jumps out at me as the favorite to take it all is Too Hot. Too Hot over the last couple of years has made great strides, and they've now established themselves as one of those borderline Double-A squads, as evidenced by yesterday taking on the Rainmakers in a scrimmage. Obviously the Rainmakers didn't have all their players there, but Too Hot was able to come away with a win, a walk-off win against a very good Double-A team. So that bodes well for their luck in Single A. Aside from that, the Yankees are always going to be a tough squad. They were there last year. They may have lost a couple arms, but I still think they're going to be in the mix. And I like the moves made by the Astoria Mets. Now, full disclosure, I did play for the Mets in fall ball, but I think they've made some very good moves, and they're going to be a better team than they were a year ago with bringing in a pitcher like John Simpkins, who's a very, very reliable, dependable pitcher in that division. They brought back Jeff Applebaum from the fall. Jeff was very solid for them. And I really think that this is a team that's got a chance to improve upon where they were a year ago, and I think they're going to make some noise. As for everybody else, we got some new teams. We have the newly created Metro team from that free agent draft class. We've got the Knights, who's a new team. I got to meet some of their guys at Taft on Saturday. They look to be very excited for the season. So I think it's going to be a hell of a battle at the Single A level. And I'm looking to see if one of those teams, Too Hot or maybe somebody else, can make that leap that the Dodgers made this year. Win Single A, decide, screw it, we're moving up, and move up to take on the Double-A competition, because I think what we're seeing is that gap between the two divisions is slowly narrowing. And, I think we've got a great chance to see that from someone this year. But at the end of the day, predictions are just that. They're just predictions. They don't mean anything. So once the season kicks off on Saturday, we're going to get a chance to have these questions answered for real. I know that I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure you guys are as well. And, I can't wait to see you out there. So until next time, guys, stay healthy, stay happy, Keep it between the lines.